All right, well, welcome to session 3. We are continuing our discussion today of the personal statement. We're working on brainstorming content and ideas so we can start drafting an essay soon. So last time we discussed how every personal statement needs to not just tell, but also show what makes you different from every other student applying with similar test scores and grades.
Can
So that's,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
To pop in, Veronica, are you a junior this week? Or is it-
Yeah.
Junior, okay.
That's great, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, are you familiar with the personal statement, the college essay? that's
Yeah.
required?
Kind of,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to give a little bit of background for Veronica, since she's not a senior and she's not applying, just basically that this is a standard essay that's required with every college application. And so Mrs. Eller spent some time last week going through some brainstorming exercise to help think of some good topics. And then we're kind of delving deeper into it today with just some more ideas that she's got to help make our essays great, but that's sort of where you're joining us.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, as far as any like juniors who might be watching, um, I don't think you need to write your essay yet, but it can be helpful to start thinking about what kinds of things make for a great college essay. And what I particularly love about the process is that it requires you to write a great college personal essay. It's called a personal statement essay. You really have to get to know yourself in a deeper way than most people really of any age, but definitely, age 17 or 18, um, know themselves. So it kind of helps you, it pushes you to start thinking about, well, what does make me me? And some things might be more obvious, and some things might be a little more hidden that take a little more digging. So not so as I was saying, not only do you have to like identify what those things are that make you unique, name them, but then you actually have to show them. So how do you like reveal them without just saying, well, I'm unique because of this? And that's why brainstorming is the most important part of the process, because it helps you figure those things out, and then it also helps you figure out how to show them. So the things that we've talked about from last week that I encouraged you to do, hopefully you've already done if you're a senior watching this, are the values exercise. That's the one where you name your top 5 and then 3 and then maybe even just one core values. And this is really the most important one. So hopefully you do more than just that one, but if you only do one exercise, make sure you do that one. It's going to be like your values are your North Star for your essay. Any topic you pick must connect to at least one of your core values and reveal it in a meaningful way. Because, what you really care about is kind of the best way to show who you really are. We also touched on last week the I love and I know exercise. It's just listing things that you love and listing things that you know that you could go on and on about and talk about, like if you had to do a TED talk tomorrow, what would your topic be? Can be as obscure or bizarre or like trivial as you want. Today, we're going to start with doing another exercise that can give you some really interesting stuff, like content for your essay that you probably wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And that's what you can see on the handout if you have that. The essence objects. So even if you're a junior, if you're watching, might as well go ahead and do it because I'm going to give you some time, a little bit of time to at least get started on it. And you'll quickly realize whether this is a fruitful brainstorming exercise or not. So I'll give you the heads up. It is rather abstract. Like it's going to ask you to think metaphorically figuratively, non-literally, and for some more straightforward, fact-oriented people, this might be weird or confusing or just like not very fruitful. But for others, it can give you really good, unexpected content. So here's how it works. You have the Cliff Notes version on your paper, so I do want you to listen to the fuller instructions here. Imagine a box. For now, we'll start with like a shoebox or something. In this box is a set of objects. Each one represents some aspect of who you are. These are your essence objects. Each object represents one of your fundamental qualities that, combined, make up who you are. For example, one thing in my box could be an erasable pink pen, specifically the Friction brand, because it represents my love for and ability with editing, and also how I like to use pink rather than red to be more fun and encouraging. This one's a little outdated now because now I would do everything on Google Docs, but back in the olden times, I used to use this specific brand of pen that was erasable, and I used bright colors like pink, and that's what I used to mark up all of my students' essays. So again, it does require you to think abstractly and it's like symbolically. It's not that I am literally a pink pen or that I even use them anymore, but rather it represents something about who I am, about my essence. Now, the objects do have to be like concrete things that you could like touch or hold, or see, but they don't have to be something you would actually keep in a box or that could even fit in a box. Or you can think of their box as like extremely large. But again, it should be something concrete that represents something abstract. For example, it could be a favorite meal that your grandmother always made for you. Wouldn't keep very well in a box under your bed, but it's still a physical, concrete thing. It could be a canoe because you always went canoeing in the summer at a family vacation spot. It could be a picture of someone that has special significance. It could be a book. Just make sure that it is something that can be touched, seen, smelled, tasted, or heard. So it could be a song. Again, back in the olden days, we used to have CDs. We used to have physical copies of music. Maybe you could put a song in your box, even though we don't have physical versions anymore. So your task is to write down what the object is and a very brief note about what it represents to you. Now, when you write down the object, try to be as specific as possible. Include the color, the brand, the style. So don't just put my Bible. Well, what translation is it? What color is the cover? Is it old and tattered? Does it have lots of little sticky notes, sticking out? Does it have highlighting? Is it brand new? Give us some description. Again, like if you wanted to put like a pair of running shoes, well, what brand, what color, what condition are they in? So try to make it unique so that, if I looked at the lists of several students, no one would have the same thing. At least not exactly the same thing. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to do it now. Usually I do this to make sure you have a sense of how it works and you can ask any questions. We'll still take a couple minutes to do it, even though we've just got one student here today. But maybe Mrs. Hollister, you can try it yourself and see if you have any questions.
Great.
I'm just going to pause the recording and then I'll start back up in a couple minutes. Just kidding. I just remembered I gave you 20 questions to help you brainstorm. So if you've got ideas already without looking at that list, great. But if you're sitting here like, what the heck is she talking about? I'm totally lost. Then just look at some of those objects. I like the one like, what would you take with you in a fire? I feel like that's a great one to start with. All right, go for it. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to jot down a few objects. Did you have any questions or would you be up for sharing anything that you came up with?
I can share. Did you want to share anything? Did you come up with anything?
A few, I don't know if I want to share them.
That's okay. I put a coffee cup because I love going out to coffee and visiting with friends. It's a special way to connect. That's a big part of my life. A Zumba top because I love to dance at the gym and I have all of my gym friends that I love to do that with, and a picture of my husband and a charm bracelet with my kids' birthstones on it.
Okay,
And I
great.
have
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, so that's a great start. I would recommend now see if you can get even more specific, and maybe you did and you were just summarizing for the sake of time, but like you mentioned, a coffee cup. So, you know, you start with like a coffee cup to represent going to coffee, but like where's your favorite place to go to coffee? You know, coffee. Maybe it's like my husband that you might know loves to go to Black Dog at Lake Ellis. So like maybe his would be a Black Dog coffee cup, you know, which is like white with black print and you know what. So like there might be other people who would have a coffee cup in their box of essence objects, but like what makes yours unique? And you could even say like what's in your coffee cup? Like what is your favorite coffee drink that you always get if you have one? And then same for like the picture of your husband, right? How could you get even more specific? Of course, hopefully no one else will have a picture of your husband in their box, right? But maybe, you know, his mother might, like, but she might pick a different picture than you would pick. So which picture? And that's how you can get, you know, even more granular and sort of unique with it.
Okay.
Now, you might be wondering, what is the point of that? How does that help me? Some of you will not use that in your essays, but some of you might. So you can actually write a whole essay specifically about a collection of essence objects to show who you are. Or if you're writing an essay on a different topic, sometimes essence objects are great little details, like sensory details, you know, that bring in the five senses to help illustrate what you're talking about. So maybe your essay is about how social you are and how you're the person that everyone goes to, like comes to when they need to talk. And you talk at coffee shops, right? So instead of just saying, oh, I'm the person that everyone comes to, and we usually talk at coffee shops, the end, you know, now you've got this essence object, this specific cup of coffee that you can bring into that essay to help bring it to life and give it some specificity. One of the interesting paradoxes that is true for writing, and just a side note, God loves him some paradoxes, so I always pay attention when there's a good paradox, you know, like 3 in 1, etc. But a paradox for writing is that the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes. It activates different parts of the brain when we describe something that we can see, touch, smell, taste, or hear. And it actually connects with your reader on a different, deeper level than if you just say, I like to go to coffee. Like none of us can really feel anything when you say that. But if you say, I like to go to, you know, Lucky Goat at such and such location and cut my hands around my steaming lavender Earl Grey tea and feel the steam warm my face as I listen to a specific person tell me a specific story. You know, like now we're starting to feel something. So that's one of the ways that the essence objects can end up being really powerful. So what I would suggest that you do, and this is listed on the homework, is to spend a little more time with this exercise, unless you were like, wow, this is like really not working for me, then that's fine. But if there was, you know, any sort of spark of potential there, I'd encourage you to spend some more time on it. Aim for 20 objects with a few words about each one, and then maybe pick a few to expand on with more description and explanation. Again, you could end up having an essay all about, I mean, you could potentially have an essay about one of them, or you could have an essay about several of them. We're going to talk in just a minute about how that might work. Okay, so last time I asked who had, of the people who came, who knew with some level of certainty what they wanted to do as a career. And I think everyone or most people did. The other major question that I always like to ask is, and of course this is hypothetical because, we don't have you here live right now, but how many of you listening, raise your hand in your room by yourself if you feel like you have faced significant challenges in your life that you might want to write about. So a challenge, is something that you've had to overcome, something you've had to adapt to. And when we say significant challenge, like that's up to you to define. But it's best if it's something pretty universally difficult, that most people would be like, oh yeah, that sounds hard. And or something rather unique, that not everyone has experienced. Not because if lots of people have gone through it, it's not challenging or meaningful, but just because it's going to make for a less interesting essay. You have to think about these admissions officers are reading thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of essays every year. So they're like, oh, another essay about not getting picked to be team captain. Like, next. So if you're going to write about a challenge, it does need to be like pretty significant, meaning pretty difficult or pretty unique. So this is what I normally ask. How many of you have that? The reason I ask is because career and challenge are two common topics for great essays, but they are not the only ones. We'll talk more about some other topics next week. But the other reason I ask is because they directly relate to the two essay structures that are available to you. If you're going to write about a challenge, then the narrative structure will be the best way to do it, really the only way to do it. So a narrative structure means that you're telling a story. First this happened, then I did this, then this happened, then I had to do this, and here's what I learned, and here's how I overcame. So something happens that throws your life off balance, and the story is about how you dealt with that. Montage is a collection of smaller stories or anecdotes, I call them, just to distinguish between like a story with a narrative arc and like a little like, oh, this thing happened the other day, kind of like that's like a little anecdote. So a montage is a collection of short, small stories or anecdotes, reflections, and tidbits that center around a common theme. So if you've never heard the word montage, that word is also used to describe like kind of a collection of little images in like movies, for example. So if you think of like every rom-com ever, like after the couple that's almost gotten together, has gotten together, whatever, and then they have the big misunderstanding that would have been clear if they'd just communicated. And then they break up and then they're sad. There's like a sad montage where they're separate and they're like thinking about, it's like, oh, it's raining. He's walking in the rain. And then, she's, walking past the bookshop where they first met. And then she's crying. And then they're going, he's going on a different date, but he looks bored. And then, so it's like, you're probably not getting the dialogue. You're not going deep into those moments, but it's like a little collection of images that all relate to the theme of they're sad without each other. So those are the two structures, narrative and montage. If you are writing about a challenge, then narrative structure will be for you. You'll be telling the story of what happened and how it changed you. It will have cause and effect, and it will unfold chronologically. So for example, it might be like, when I was 9, my mom moved us from San Francisco, California to the middle of nowhere, Utah. I lost all my friends, but I did get a horse. And my life was forever changed because I had to figure out how to make new friends and adjust to a new culture. And I was lonely and, I have to figure out like where I'm going with that story. But that's like the example of a story that like this thing happened to me, we moved, and then I had to adjust. If you're writing about a challenge with a narrative structure, you'll follow this 3-part format. Part 1, what happened? Keep that part short. Part 2, what you did about it. This should take up the bulk of the word, the space on the page. Again, it's not more of what happened, it's what you did. So like in my example, I spent a lot of time with my horse. I tried to make friends with the neighbors across the street who happen to be Mormon. I, got involved in dance, wherever the story is going to go. So like, what did I do about the situation? And you'll want to make sure you're including your feelings, which are related to your needs, and what you did, strategies you used to try to meet those needs. That may not make any sense to you right now. That's why you'll need the feelings and needs exercise. You'll get a link to that along with the replay. You can also just Google feelings and needs college essay guy. It's one of his exercises. And we'll wrap up in just a couple minutes here. But that exercise is extremely useful if you're gonna do a narrative structure about a challenge. Like, I highly, highly recommend that you do that. For every other kind of essay, montage is going to be the best structure. It allows you to write about multiple things in one essay, uniting them under some kind of umbrella framing device. So part of your homework for this week is to read some sample essays, and that'd be a great thing for juniors to do, just to get a sense of what these kinds of essays look like. The My Desk essay in there is the first one, and that's a great example of a montage that basically is like essence objects. The structure is simple. You introduce the frame device. In this case, it would be a desk. Then you have one paragraph on each of the smaller topics. In this case, it was the things on the desk and what they mean, what they represent. And then you have a conclusion paragraph that brings it all together with a unifying thought. So you can see the homework there on the page and in your follow-up email, but read some sample essays, at least the first 3, expand on the essence objects if that felt like it had any potential. If you're gonna do a challenge, do the feelings and needs exercise, and then start making a short list of potential topics. What might you write about? Start collecting some material, because next week it'll be decide your topic and write your rough draft. Again, you're encouraged to share this with me if you'd like any feedback. I'm really good at like looking through brainstorming material and being like, hey, this might be a really cool topic, or I see this pattern. Have you thought about writing about this? And if you have some ideas, then I'm happy to weigh in on those as well. And I'm sure Mrs. Hollister would do the same.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Zeller. I appreciate it. That was really helpful.
Thank you. I'll see you next time.
See you next time.